Welcome, and thank you for joining our annual meeting of PMA members, done virtually for the third time in our 84 years of existence. People's Memorial Association would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the coastal Salish, Squamish, and Suquamish nations on which we work and live. I'm Cheryl Jennings, the president of the board of directors for both People's Memorial Association and the Co-op Funeral Home. The 12 of us board members and the staff appreciate the extra efforts that you expended this morning to join our webinar in a secure manner. The ongoing pandemic continues to remind PMA and the funeral home daily of both the relevance and the poignancy of our work to remain the trusted resource and thought leader for funeral choice, education, and advocacy in Washington State, and to create a future where everyone has access to after-death arrangements that reflect their personal values and resources. We are committed to taking action towards diversity and inclusion. We've been looking at the cultural, religious, and ethnic diversity of our leadership, staff, membership, community partners, and services provided, and are taking steps to ensure that what we do and who we are is equally accessible to Washingtonians. We will share the actions we've taken so far throughout this meeting and will continue to do the work needed, both as individuals and as an organization, to achieve these goals. Several of our board members and staff are here with us today, and we'll be hearing from them and some of our community partners throughout the meeting. We also have a keynote speaker this year, Micah Truman from Return Home. As housekeeping matters, due to the webinar format, we will ask for vocal affirmations of motions during the meeting from the board members. Then you will see a pop-up on your screen for all of you attendees online to vote on the motions. And now we'll see a slide for the Zoom instructions. To submit questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A function, that means question and answer function, at the bottom of your screen. I'll give you a moment to find them. So you're looking for Q&A. Our communications manager, Beverly Trick, will monitor the incoming questions and let us know periodically what we, as PMA, need to answer and to clarify for you. Throughout the meeting, we'll be putting links to information in the chat box. You'll also take a moment and look for that. It should be at the bottom of your screen. We will also include these links and a recording of this meeting in a follow-up email that we will send to all of you participants next week. We plan that this meeting will last for 2 hours. There will be a raffle towards the end of the meeting for a chance to win a gift basket, so you want to stick around for that. Our spring fundraiser is happening now, so if you'd like to enter the raffle, we invite you to make a donation now at www.peoplesmemorial.org/donate. It's a $5 minimum donation to enter. Your gift will ensure that PMA will be here for you when you need it. All of us here today know how essential it is to have reliable access to clear, concise information about end-of-life care. By making a gift during our spring fundraiser, we will help ensure future Washingtonians have access to this critical information. Chat. Okay. I would like now to welcome Megan Walker, Secretary of the Board, to ask for your approval of last year's annual meeting minutes.
The minutes from last year's annual meeting were emailed to all of you who registered for this webinar, and the link is being put in the chat. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from last year's annual meeting?
So moved.
Would someone like to second?
Seconded.
All in favor of approving the minutes for 2021's annual meeting, choose aye. Those opposed, choose nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Before we get into what's going on here in Washington, let's hear from Josh Slocum, Executive Director of the National Funeral Consumers Alliance, about what's happening nationally.
Hi, I'm Joshua Slocum, Executive Director of Funeral Consumers Alliance, and even if you don't know it, you are a member of Funeral Consumers Alliance by virtue of the fact that you're a member of People's Memorial Association. People's Memorial is the oldest and largest funeral consumer education and advocacy organization in the country. You precede us. You built PMA in 1939, and PMA helped build the Funeral Consumers Alliance national organization in 1963. And I'm really impressed with what PMA has done and what all of you have done locally in Washington State. Your legislative advocacy is second to none among our Federation of Consumer Groups. The fact that you've made alkaline hydrolysis a legal option, what people are calling natural organic reduction or composting, has not only improved choices for people in Washington State, but you have set a template that is being used in many states around the rest of the country, and we're very grateful for it. But I want to tell you that your membership does more than just what you do in Washington. It actually does things for us nationally. As well as being one of the oldest groups in existence, you are also one of our main supporters. You're one of our main funders. So when you donate to PMA, PMA donates to us. And I want to show you what that generosity does, because you are actually doing work around the country that you don't know about. Let me give you a couple of examples. You may remember, I think I addressed you last year, that we are trying to get the Federal Trade Commission to update what's called the funeral rule, the rule that gives consumers access to pricing about funerals. We want to make sure that it requires funeral homes to put those prices online. So that's been our big ask to the Federal Trade Commission. It's been almost 2 years now since they opened comments on the funeral rule, and they still have not told us what they're planning to do. We can't make them work any faster, but what we can do is try to light a fire. So what we're doing now is a new version of a survey we did 5 or 6 years ago, looking at the rate of online disclosure of prices at funeral homes. We're sampling 26 capital cities. And we did this before, and we're going to see if there's been any change. And we're partway through the research, and there hasn't been much change. So hopefully this report will help us prod the Federal Trade Commission into making a national change that will benefit all consumers. And on a more regional level, we had the opportunity recently at FCA to participate in lawmaking in New Hampshire that would overturn that state's unique law. And I should have set it up a little better for you. New Hampshire has a unique law that is ambiguously written and seems to require that any body that has a public viewing at a funeral has to be embalmed after 24 hours. There's no other law in the nation like it. So we've gone to New Hampshire twice this spring to testify against that, and we think that we are going to be able to do it, which will open up green burial and home funeral options, as well as other non-embalmed options for consumers at funeral homes. So I don't want to take up much more of your time. I know you've got a lot on your program today, but I wish I could see you in person. And from our little office here in Vermont, I want to say thank you to everybody at PMA, both you members, board members, and staff. We couldn't do what we do without you. Have a great meeting.
Thank you so much to Josh and the FCA for all the work they do for us at the national level. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Amanda Stock, and I'm the Executive Director of People's Memorial Association. In early 2021, our previous director, Nora Menken, left after 14 years with the organizations. While we were sad to see her go, we're happy to see her flourishing with her new company. Nora is even in the audience today, joining us as a PMA member. Hi, Nora, we miss you. At that time, the organizational structure was adjusted to a co-director leadership model. So Kim Forsyth was promoted to managing funeral director of the Co-op Funeral Home. And we have been working very closely this past year on leading these two organizations. Our business manager, Jeff Cohn, retired at the end of 2021 after 8 years of service. We are so grateful for his contributions and his commitment to these organizations. Needless to say, we saw a lot of transitions in 2021. I'd like to introduce our 2 staff members. Beverly Trick is our communications manager. She spearheads our educational programming and manages our member communications. She will tell you more about the virtual learning that has taken place this past year a little bit later. Jessica Runner has been promoted to business and administrative assistant. In addition to answering all the questions from our members and their families, she supports our business operations as well. PMA is now a team of 3 women and the youngest staff the organization has had in its 84-year history. We've done a great job developing new systems while considering our resources in order to best serve our community. For example, our annual report was sent digitally this year for the first time. Make sure you check out that report by visiting peoplesmemorial.org/report, and Beverly will give us that link in the chat. I'm very proud of the way we've carried things forward through these transitions, all while providing exemplary service to our members. We frequently reflect on our organization's values and honor those who have come before us as we continue our mission of being Washington State's trusted resource for funeral choice education and advocacy. While we've experienced a lot of change recently, one thing remains steadfast, and that's PMA's reliability and support to its 71,000 members and their families. In 2021, we expanded our cremation assistance fund. We are now able to cover a portion of the cost of cremation, aquamation, or burial services. Since we're providing financial assistance for more than just cremation, we're now calling this the Funeral Financial Assistance Fund. Each family receives $635 paid directly to the PMA contracted funeral home of their choice. This expansion is part of our diversity and inclusion efforts. Not all people choose cremation for religious and cultural reasons, so we were unintentionally excluding many communities from accessing this essential resource. Thanks to a grant we received in 2021 and to the ongoing support from our generous donors, we helped a record number of 27 families last year. Our board of directors formed an equity and inclusion committee to help us identify ways we can be more inclusive in our ongoing work towards our vision. This committee is a team of board members and PMA members who are dedicated to increasing the accessibility of PMA's resources. PMA believes that end-of-life preparation and death care should be a right, not just a privilege. It is committed to assuring loving, respectful end-of-life support and death care that reflects the personal values and resources for all Washingtonians, regardless of their cultural, religious, and ethnic identities. Some of the work that is ahead of us and that this committee and the staff are doing together is building partnerships with organizations that serve diverse populations. We are bringing our free resources to them, providing information about the Funeral Financial Assistance Fund, and we are receiving feedback about ways to make culturally appropriate adjustments to our resources. As we look ahead to 2022, we're preparing our biennial funeral home price survey. We continue to require appointments for all visitors at the office, and we'll continue to conduct our classes and this annual meeting online since so many more people can join us this way. PMA is now in its 84th year of service, thanks to our active members and supporters like you. So many of you have been generously giving to PMA for many years. We recognize and appreciate you. The pandemic has revealed that the difference between affordable, dignified death care and uncertain, expensive care can be boiled down to education. The folks that don't know their rights or their options can easily be exploited by predatory business tactics in their time of grief. That's why this spring, PMA aims to raise $25,000 to ensure that all Washingtonians can access the critical resources that help them care for the ones they love. This is the first opportunity of the year for you to show your commitment to our mission. We've seen your support change the lives of so many. I invite you to make a gift today by visiting our website at peoplesmemorial.org/donate. We have some new ways to support PMA. They will support the future of PMA, and they're easy to do and tax efficient. Setting up a donor advised fund is like creating a charitable investment account to grant funds to your favorite charities. Qualified charitable distributions, or QCDs, are gifts transferred directly from your IRA account to a charitable organization. We're seeing this as the most popular type of non-cash gift from our members recently because it's really easy to do online. You can even gift shares of stock to PMA. When you do this, you avoid capital gains taxes on those shares if you were to cash them out yourself. And including PMA in your will as the recipient of a bequest is a great way to give without affecting your current financial situation. There are several options here, and people like giving this way because they can take care of their loved ones first, then support their favorite cause. Join the handful of PMA members who want their legacy to be helping families during the most difficult time of life. If you'd like to learn more about these types of giving, I'm happy to speak with you. My email will show up there in the chat. It's amanda@peoplesmemorial.org. And now I'd like to turn it over to our communications manager, Beverly Trick. Thank you.
Last year, we shared about our need to continue to grow our membership base by expanding our member benefits. So we'd like to share some new member benefits this year. PMA members now have access to providers in Bellingham and Central Washington, two areas that have been notoriously difficult for us to reach in the past. We now have 2 providers of natural organic reduction offering reduced pricing to our members. And for the first time ever, we've contracted with a company that provides handcrafted urns. They're called touch-formed memorials. I'll go ahead and drop those links down in the chat for you. You'll definitely want to become familiar with those list of providers. Now is a great time to be a member of PMA, and we encourage you to continue sharing about this great organization with your friends and families. Almost 70% of new members say they were referred by a loved one who's already a member. So we know that it's your personal story that makes the difference. One of the core ways that we're able to provide such reliable, high-quality services is satisfaction surveys. Now, I know it might seem like an odd thing to ask for after a loss, but each person's experience truly matters to us. We want to know that at every step of the way, PMA's code of ethics has been upheld, and every single person is treated with dignity and respect. It's essential that we're able to guarantee our members and their families will not receive any upselling or high-pressure sales tactics, and they're going to have access to clear, easy-to-understand sets of prices and plans to choose from. I put together a short video clip of some of the powerful testimonials we received back in those surveys this past year, 2021, and I'd love to share that with you real quick. 2021 proved to be another exceptionally challenging year for us all. But at PMA, we had a lot to a lot to be thankful for. We hosted 26 webinars over 8 different monthly series, and even got the chance to present for community partners like End of Life Washington and new friends like WSU's Sustainability Stewards. The whopping 1,239 people that tuned into our webinars learned about everything from helping someone organize their digital assets to how to become a medical legal death investigator to what the best books on death are. Green Funerals Week was a big hit again in 2021, being our most well-attended series. And it's back this May, as you might have noticed from this slide. Spring is sprung, and what better way to celebrate than taking an entire week to talk about the ways our bodies impact our planet at the end of life. Okay, it can't just be me thinking that, since one of the most common questions we hear at PMA from people researching their options is, what can I do to minimize the environmental impact of my funeral? In a region so passionate about the majesty of the outdoors, this is no surprise. We know that it takes a lot of materials to build a casket, a lot of chemicals to embalm a person, and a lot of industrial tools to maintain a perfectly manicured, sprawling cemetery lawn. That knowledge leads a lot of folks to choose cremation instead. For generations, cremation was the most ecologically friendly death care option around, but things have changed. For one thing, we now know that this energy-intensive process releases 219 known emissions, including carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases, and carcinogenic toxins. Our affinity for cremation here in Washington has led to 1,400 pounds of mercury vaporized in the last 5 years alone, to say nothing of the natural gas we've gobbled up. We lead the nation in cremation, with nearly 80% of Washingtonians choosing this option for their final disposition. The national average hovers at only about 56%, if you can believe it. With the passage of SB 5001 just a few years back, Washingtonians have 2 more options for caring for their bodies, and both have a reduced impact on the environment. Alkaline hydrolysis, also called aquamation, and natural organic reduction, sometimes called human composting, they both became legal back in 2020 and have since allowed many families the chance to choose the care that aligns with their values. And don't worry, we'll get to hear more about these options later on in the meeting. During our 3rd annual Green Funerals Week, we'll be learning more about the environmental impact of cremation, get updated on the latest in land stewardship from green cemeteries around the country, find out how grassroots advocacy can help to increase death care options, and hear the story of the first aquamation to take place in Washington. As a part of the series, PMA is truly over the moon to be able to hold its first in-person event since 2019. A guided tour of Return Home's natural organic reduction facility, followed by refreshments and a special crafting workshop facilitated by our friends at the Grateful Death. As Washington's oldest funeral education and consumer advocacy nonprofit, PMA knows our community has come to expect high-quality, fascinating educational content from us. We can't wait for you to join us at Green Funerals Week to see us in action and get your questions answered by the experts. You can sign up for as many of the webinars as you like, or even consider joining us for that in-person event by visiting peoplesmemorial.org/events. I'm going to drop that link in the chat for you. And you know, if all this green funeral stuff is a little outside your comfort zone, no worries. In partnership with the King County Library System, we just recorded brand new sessions of our tried and true Ducks in a Row series. You can check out those recordings on our YouTube channel or our website at peoplesmemorial.org/library. That there for you. And you can get the info you need about estate planning, advanced care directives, and your funeral options. Let us know if you've got questions. That's what an educational nonprofit is all about. Now, I know I just talked your ear off about PMA's focus on education and empowering our community, but it's important to remember that it takes a team of dedicated professionals to bring all this work to life. So I'd like to say a special thank you to one of our board members, Katy Roberts, who is generously supporting today's virtual annual meeting by being a sponsor. And she's got a message we'd love to share with you.
I purposely chose a thoughtful approach to real estate as my tagline to just bring it down to earth a little bit. The roller coaster of the press and Zillow and Seattle Times, flashing headlines. We forget that this is our home.
When thinking about buying or selling a house, it's a very emotional process. I came to the table with a certain level of stress. She came to the table with an immense amount of confidence.
The process of selling a home can be daunting. I want you to feel heard. I want you to feel taken care of. I want you to feel informed and well equipped to make decisions. When I walk into a home and someone's planning to sell, I really put my buyer's lens on. What are the buyers today looking for? I'm wanting to find what is the best for this house. I work with Compass, and one of our core values is collaborate without ego. I have 12 agents that I meet with twice a month to talk about the market in other areas. What are they doing that's creative? What's going to give my clients that edge? What's going to give them the most knowledge? It's beyond just me. The window washers, the contractors, the painters, the plumbers, of course lenders. I've got lenders galore. I have a few favorites.
But she just has a knack for understanding your needs, what drives you, what your dreams might be, and can envision whether or not a certain property is going to help you achieve those dreams.
When you work with me, you get the full service package. And then you also get the power of Compass. It gives me, as your agent, the best tools to be able to utilize your investment and get the most value out of your property. It's the perfect combination. You get me and you get Compass.
Thank you so much, Katie. Well, now I'd like to hand it over to our Managing Funeral Director at the Co-op Funeral Home, Kim Forsyth.
Hi, everyone. As Beverly said, my name is Kim Forsyth. After serving on the funeral director team since our opening in 2007, I was delighted to have the opportunity to step into the role as managing funeral director. This year marks 15 years since the opening of the Co-op Funeral Home, and we're going into our third year at our Queen Anne location. Our fantastic team of funeral directors consists of our lead funeral director, Chris Ronk, funeral director intern, Rachel LeBlanc, and our newest funeral director intern, Nisa Cooley. They have worked tirelessly to provide our members with the compassionate care and efficiency that has come to represent People's Memorial. Throughout the continually shifting landscape of the pandemic, they have remained equally flexible and reliable, operating the funeral home both in person and remotely as needed to optimize the safety of our members and staff. Of the 784 families we served last year, 95% preferred to complete arrangement paperwork digitally. So in July of last year, we upgraded our case management software to better accommodate this digital workplace. The Co-op Funeral Home remains one of the top 5 busiest funeral homes in King County and is among the top 20 in Washington State. This is impressive for our small team of 4, and I'm incredibly proud of our staff and their hard work and dedication. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this annual meeting. KHBB Law focuses on estate planning, probate, and trust administration. For over 10 years, attorneys from KHBB Law have been volunteering their time and expertise to educate our members on estate planning. We appreciate our longtime partnership with them, and we're grateful for their commitment to community, education, and advocacy. Katy Roberts offers a thoughtful approach to real estate. She has experience helping people downsize and sell property that is part of an estate sale. It's nice to work with someone who understands how to handle these types of situations. Katy has been one of our alternate board members this past year, and after seeing the impact of PMA's service, she's decided to volunteer to be a full-time board member. Group Health Foundation aims to shape and accelerate efforts to improve health equity and advance community aspirations for a vibrant, healthy future in Washington. A fun piece of history: Group Health Medical Center and Credit Union were founded by the same people who founded People's Memorial Association. So to reignite this partnership all these years later has been incredible. Thank you to Group Health Foundation for their support these past few years. A few of their staff members are here today. Welcome. We partner with these mission-aligned businesses and organizations because of their commitment to serving the community. We encourage you to check out their websites to learn more. And now I'd like to introduce Ann Norman, Treasurer of the Board, to provide a financial report for both organizations.
Thank you, Kim. 2021 was a great year for PMA, and we ended the year with a net revenue of $23,000. We're seeing some shifts in the composition of the PMA budget, thanks largely in part to our active members like you who are with us today. PMA brought in a total of $286,000, which was 24% more than budgeted. We surpassed our fundraising goals for the year, so a huge thank you to all of you who made a gift. We received a generous $130,000 from individual donors, which was about 30% more than we thought we would fundraise. Additionally, we received a $50,000 grant from a family foundation called the Spark Joy Foundation. They were interested in supporting a nonprofit that was helping families with funeral expenses during the pandemic. So half of those funds were earmarked for the Funeral Financial Assistance Fund, and the other half was unrestricted. These two sources of revenue helped us support families in need. After increases in 2020 due to the pandemic, membership was down 18% in 2021. So we've likely returned to the pre-pandemic levels in new members. New member dues brought in about $80,000, which was 8% under budget. Our digital document storage continues to be a valuable member benefit, and it's very affordable at just $25 per person. This service brought in almost $6,000 and was close to what we anticipated for the year. Corporate and foundation giving was the third largest category of revenue, bringing in a total of $63,000. In addition to that grant from Spark Joy Foundation, we received funds from some of our corporate partners as they sponsored our events. We hosted a virtual fundraising event in the fall, which brought in over $3,000. This was the first year we charged for our webinars, and we brought in a total of $4,300. Great job to our communications manager, Beverly Trick, for her efforts with building community partnerships and expanding our educational offerings. We now have a robust virtual class schedule that covers a variety of topics about the end of life. While membership dues in our fall virtual event didn't bring in as much revenue as we thought, we made up for it through individual and foundation giving. That's the big shift we're seeing in the makeup of our budget. Individual giving is now contributing to the bulk of our revenue at 45%, compared to 29% in 2019. New member dues are now the second largest contributor at 28% of our revenue in 2021, compared to 38% in 2019. We're comparing this year, 2021, to 2019 because it was pre-pandemic and a normal year for the association. PMA spent a total of $263,000 in expenses, which was 3% more than budget. With the promotion of Amanda to Executive Director, PMA reshuffled responsibilities and added one full-time employee at the end of 2020. So in 2021, we saw an increase in payroll. 56% of our expenses, or about $150,000, goes towards payroll and benefits, as this is the core of what we give you: compassionate and knowledgeable staff to support you during one of life's most difficult moments. We spent about $53,000 on operations. This category includes things like our dues to the national organization, Funeral Consumers Alliance, rent, insurance, bank fees, member support services like postage, printing, phones, and software subscriptions. Through your generous donations, we were able to help 27 families through the Funeral Financial Assistance Fund for a total of $22,000. $17,000 was spent on program services, which included mailing out the annual report to our membership last year. Another $17,000 was spent on professional fees, including accounting, payroll services, tech support, and phone services for member calls. This expense was a bit higher than usual because we converted to a new accounting software program called QuickBooks Online. This software allows us to access the records remotely and contributes to better internal controls. We hired a consultant to lead the complex and time-intensive project. Let's move to the financial report for the Co-op Funeral Home. 2020 was such an unusual year for the Co-op Funeral Home, so it was challenging to predict what 2021 would look like. The funeral home's total income for the year was $854,000, which was about 11% less than what we had budgeted. We thought we would continue to see higher sales like we did in 2020, but that wasn't exactly the case. Our year-end case counts ended up lower than they had been in 3 years. And with gathering restrictions still in place for most of the years, many families chose to postpone or avoid funeral ceremonies altogether. This curtailed spending and led to overall lower than expected sales. The general makeup of the funeral home's budget remains the same year after year. Member sales continued to be the main source of income. Almost $700,000 was generated from sales to members, which makes up about 81% of our income. Non-member sales is the second largest income generator, and we earned $111,000 in this category. The third largest income category is records fee, or money generated from our contracted providers, which brought in about $42,000. Life insurance sales brought in $4,300, which was on par with budget. However, due to the ongoing pandemic restrictions, there was no income earned from venue rentals. We spent a total of $901,000 in expenses, which was about 4% more than budget. Our largest expense category is payroll and benefits at 44% of our budget, or just under $400,000. Subcontractors is the next largest expense category. This expense is directly related to sales. About 35% of the income from member and non-member sales is paid out to subcontractors. Our subcontractors are the businesses that help us do what we do, like the crematory, transportation fleet, and courier services. $277,000 was spent on contractors. $37,000 was spent on purchasing merchandise on behalf of the families we serve, which included things like urns and caskets. $58,000 was spent on professional fees, which includes the critical time of death line, the phone line that is answered 24/7 to help families locate an affordable funeral home once a death occurs. Also included in professional fees is accounting fees, payroll services, and tech support. This expense category was a bit higher than usual because, like PMA, the funeral home converted the accounting software to QuickBooks Online. The project was more complex than we originally planned for, so the fee paid to the consultant was higher than the budget. However, this investment contributes to better internal controls and helps us run our business more efficiently, so it was worth the expense. $54,000 was spent on the office space. $27,000 was spent on operations, which includes cooperative membership dues, business licenses, insurance, and the tools we need to serve families and members like postage, telephone, internet, and software subscriptions. The funeral home also converted to a new software program for case management called Gather. So this category was a bit higher than usual as well. Bank service charges were $23,000, almost $24,000, which are the fees we pay if a family pays for funeral arrangements by credit card. And $16,000 was paid for taxes. Our expense totaling $12,000 includes things like website, supplies, paying off our loan, and donation to 2 organizations for carbon offsets and the planting of trees. Since we were able to host in-person funeral ceremonies, the one area where we make a profit, income from sales, was much lower than we anticipated. That, combined with a few expenses that were higher than budgeted, made for a loss of $47,000. This is not what we want to see, yet this has not been a consistent trend for funeral home. Fortunately, we have enough in reserves to absorb the loss. With the help of our managing funeral director, Kim Forsyth, we created an efficient budget that projects a much better outlook for 2022. Now I'd like to turn it over to our board member, Carrie Andrews. Carrie, take it away.
The work we at PMA do to educate and support our community as they plan for and confront end of life is expansive and has changed forms many times over the more than 80 years we have been right here in Washington. Each year at the annual meeting, we like to take a second to acknowledge the hard work that volunteers undertake in service to PMA's mission. Today, we'd like to draw some special attention to one volunteer in particular who made an invaluable contribution in 2021. Both organizations spent a few months last year converting to a new accounting software, QuickBooks Online. The conversion was a huge undertaking. Our treasurer of the board, Ann Norman, is a licensed CPA and volunteered over 70 hours helping the staff ensure the books were in order. This work was done in addition to her time on the board and as the chair of the finance committee. Because of this incredible gift of time and expertise, we'd like to honor Ann Norman as our volunteer of the year.
Thank you, Anne, for your service. In 2020, many dynamic, capable, and diverse people stepped forward to volunteer their services for PMA as board members and alternates. Because of this, we don't have very many seats to fill this year. Rather, are happy to see that 3 alternates are committing to being board members. We sent you the link to the candidates' bios in our website to review and consider in advance. We, the current board of directors, appreciate their commitments to PMA's future. Now it's time to vote them into office. This year, we are pleased to present for your affirmative vote the roster of board members to candidates. Katy Roberts, Wyvoni Ray, and Andrea Fitzgerald are volunteering to serve 3-year terms. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this roster of board candidates?
So moved.
Would someone like to second?
Seconded.
All those in favor of approving the roster of board candidates for the 22-23 PMA TCFH Board of Directors choose aye, and those opposed choose nay. And the ayes have it. The board roster is approved. Alternate board members also attend board meetings and serve on committees, just for shorter durations and in non-voting capacities. They have been the bedrock of PMA's continuity for over the years, frequently advancing into full board member status as needed. We couldn't do without our board alternates. So without further ado, we're pleased to present to you our board alternate candidate. Scott Siegel is volunteering to serve a one-year term. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this roster of alternate board candidates?
So moved.
Would someone like to second?
Seconded.
All those in favor of approving the roster of board alternate candidates for the year 21-22 PMA TCFH Board of Directors, choose aye, and those opposed choose nay. And it looks like the ayes have it. The board alternates are approved. With that, I will introduce our board president, Cheryl Jennings, to recognize our retiring board members.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to celebrate the service of Erica Campbell and June Michelle. Erica served a 6-year term and brought to us many of her skills as a provider of community education in support of memory care and exploring family dynamics at the end of life. She, like many of our members, read Jessica Mitford's American Way of Death in the 1990s and was engrossed in Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's campaign to demystify the experience of dying from a patient's perspective. Through her exploration of family dynamics at the end of life, Erica came to us equipped with the knowledge of what our community experiences as its members' journey towards the end. Erica always brought her smile and good energy to every meeting. She was willing to dream big with us and truly envision a future where all people have access to the end-of-life experience that they want. We also recognize the service of June Michelle, who served as the board vice president for the last 2 years. June reliably sparked many lively discussions, championed passionately and effectively for diversity throughout all aspects of PMA, meticulously assured our legal performance in all matters, and delivered sound and prudent counsel. I appreciated how she packed the delivery of shrewd guidance and relevant stories into a bundle of energy and humor. Southern California may just not be big enough for her. Now I'd like to turn it over to newly elected board members. Andrea?
For what? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Natural organic reduction, or the process of turning the body into soil and alkaline hydrolysis, also known as aquamation or water cremation, was legalized in 2019 and became available in Washington State towards the end of 2020. We've heard from a lot of members who are wondering how they can access these two options. I'd like to introduce our very own funeral director intern at the Co-op Funeral Home, Rachel LeBlanc. She's going to share with us how we access aquamation here in Washington State and what the Co-op Funeral Home is charging members for the service. Later, we'll hear from keynote speaker Micah Truman about natural organic reduction. For now, let's hear about aquamation from Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me today. Hello, I am Rachel from the Co-op Funeral Home of People's Memorial here in Seattle. I'm super excited to be talking with our members today about alkaline hydrolysis, which is a newer disposition option that I am personally a really big fan of. Some of you in attendance are familiar now with this option, but for those who are not, Alkaline hydrolysis, also known as aquamation or resomation, uses water, pressure, and a bit of alkaline solution to reduce one's body down to our essential building blocks: sugars, salts, amino acids, and water. The soil surrounding one's body in a natural burial does the same over a long period of time. However, alkaline hydrolysis is not much longer than a cremation, averaging about 4 to 6 hours. However, it's far more eco-friendly and viewed as much gentler on the body than cremation, using about 1/6 the amount of energy as that fire-based option, with no carbon or other pollutant emissions. The result is a sterile liquid, which has no trace of originating from a person, and is handled per each facility's policies. Typically, the family does not receive the liquid as there's a lot, but their skeletal remains are there, which are processed just like those resulting from a cremation, which the family does receive in an urn. Those bone remains are finer and more powdery compared to those after cremation, are the creamy off-white color of the natural bone, and there's about 1/3 more. And you can see the machine here down at our facility in Kent, where we do the alkaline hydrolysis. This is a resomation machine. So those remains, the family is able to handle much like they would after a cremation. So placed into a decorative urn, maybe at a cemetery, scattered in a meaningful outdoor location. Even many services that turn cremated remains into special jewelry like glass or other keepsake items can do the same with alkaline hydrolysis remains. Alkaline hydrolysis was legalized here in Washington State in May of 2020, along with natural organic reduction. And I had the absolute honor of arranging the first case in October of 2020. Since then, over 480 individuals in our state have selected alkaline hydrolysis. That may seem small for 1.5 years, but it's actually pretty promising for a new disposition option. I mean, it took over 100 years for cremation to catch on in the United States. And in some areas, the cremation rate is still only about 30%. Actually, currently only around 20 states have legalized alkaline hydrolysis or in the process of doing so. So we're still in the very exciting early stages for this option. Individuals and families have chosen alkaline hydrolysis because, to quote one of my clients, "When Mom passed, we wanted something more peaceful and respectful of the earth. We came across aquamation. This was an appealing option for us for several reasons. Water is a symbol of transformation and rebirth. Mom was an English teacher for 42 years and was always looking for symbolism. We loved that it is a greener option. Even though it is a bit more costly than a cremation, for an alternative, it was a reasonable price and it worked with our timeline. We're very happy with our choice." On that note about cost, as with burial and cremation, pricing will vary between funeral homes for alkaline hydrolysis. Here at the Co-op Funeral Home, we do offer it at one of the lowest rates around, $1,500 for non-members and $1,250 for PMA members, so about $400 more than cremation. As this is an emerging option, check in with your funeral home of choice if you're interested in alkaline hydrolysis. And if they don't currently offer it, let them know it's a service you'd like to see them add. I'm aware PMA partner Sacred Moment in Everett offers it as well. And while it's not part of our negotiated member package pricing yet, for other PMA partnering funeral homes who do offer alkaline hydrolysis, they will provide a 15% discount to our members off of their regular listed price. I have also heard of other Seattle area funeral homes like Elemental and Columbia offering alkaline hydrolysis as well. So do check it around if this is something you'd like to have for yourself. Be sure to update your disposition authorization or will directive and let your family know. It's alkaline hydrolysis for me. We have our handy disposition authorization form through PMA. So if you need one to put your wishes into writing, simply give them a call and they'll set you up. A priest came to check out the new machine here in Washington and said, to paraphrase, "We're brought into this world surrounded by water and the dark warmth of the womb. Why not leave the world surrounded by warm water as your tomb?" Well, I could go on and on about alkaline hydrolysis, and I will in an hour-long presentation on Friday, June 3rd for Green Funerals Week, or contact PMA. They have more videos and information about the option if you'd like to learn more. But for now, I'll give the mic over to Beverly and Amanda for more member-oriented news. Thank you.
To introduce our keynote speaker, Micah Truman, the founder and CEO of Return Home. Return Home is PMA's newest contact provider of natural organic reduction. Micah will share with us about terramation, the term they use to call their process for turning the body into soil, and about the special price for PMA members. Micah is a Seattle native and experienced international entrepreneur. He spent years living in Asia, running several online technology companies before founding Asia Wise, an international real estate investment company. Micah is a graduate of Oberlin College and has been featured in the New York Times Incorporated magazine and on National Public Radio. Please help me in welcoming Micah Truman.
Thanks, guys. Can you all hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me just quickly set my screen and we'll go from there. Just a moment. Okay, is everything clear on my screen, guys?
Yes.
Looks good.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for having me. As I was kindly introduced, and thank you so much. I'm Micah Truman. I'm the CEO of Return Home. I'm going to make hopefully a presentation that, yeah, I know you guys have been looking at a lot of presentations, so I'm going to make this as quick and then as interactive as I can. Just to say, when I started this company, I thought, oh my gosh, if I was ever able to present to PMA, that would be the penultimate. And lo and behold, here I am. So pinch me. Really excited to be here. Simply put, we provide a service that transforms human remains into soil. We began the company in January of 2019 to develop the science and the process, and then we figured out the technology. And then we manufactured the machinery, which was fairly bespoke. We brought in this crazy Ocean's 11 team of professionals, everything from, we had funeral directors, electrical and mechanical engineers, death doulas, soil scientists, HVAC specialists, plastics specialists. It was this incredible group, and we had to do it in the middle of COVID. So we're doing it by Zoom, which is what we're doing now, except we had to make like a physical item and a process. So it was quite an amazing experience. And we came online and were operational in late June of 2021. And we've helped over 50 families since then. Before I get into all the rest, my previous job, I worked in finance. And I came to a pretty straight up conclusion, which is we are obsessed, I certainly was, with growth, right? This quarter's got to be bigger than last. We've got to do bigger. We got to do better. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. Do bigger, do better. But the idea of infinite growth in a finite world simply doesn't work. It's simply unsustainable unless we change the parameters by which we define our companies. A company needs to be built such that the bigger it gets, the better the world off is for it. And that is the underlying premise of Return Home. It's our answer to this conundrum. I know. We got our words. We have natural organic reduction. It's the legal term. We have human composting. It's what people say. We call it terramation, and I hope you will too. Natural organic reduction. It's the legal term. Most folks aren't going to remember it. I dare you to say it 3 times fast. Human composting. We don't say, you know, my grandmother died and I'm going to be incinerating her. We say we're going to cremate her. We don't underground inter, we bury. We create words that explain what we do, but lower our defenses and let us think about it. And that is our solution with terramation. Terra, earth, mation, transformation. And this is the word we hope that we will be able to use going forward. And it's what you'll hear me use now. Quick talk about the process. So we do it in a vessel. The vessel is 8 feet long by 3.5 feet high by 3.5 feet wide. We place the body inside the vessel on a bed of organics, alfalfa, straw, sawdust. We fill the rest of the vessel up with the organics and we're off. In the second phase, we put a very limited amount, about 1/5 of a hairdryer of oxygen, or air, I should say, just regular air, but the oxygen is the key component, through the vessel. And it's freaking miraculous. The body goes up to temperature of about 160, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Microbes in our body, the things that digest the food we eat, are built to transform us, to return us to the earth. In the same way that you can use fire to toast marshmallows or to melt steel, we use this process in the same way, in the melt steel variety. 30 days in, the body is completely transformed into soil. But there is an important thing that I'd like to explain, and there's been a lot of news out there that says it's miraculous, bones and teeth disappear. Our science does not indicate that. So after 30 days, bones and teeth most certainly are there. And what we do after 30 days is we reduce those bones in the same way that we make into shards. We read those back into the soil and let them sit for 1 more month. That is a total of 60 days. At the end of 60 days, we deliver the soil back to the family. The soil is beautiful and it smells like the earth. One of the most amazing things I've seen is usually when we deliver soil back, the first thing the family does is put their arms around the bag. There is something very powerful about it. We were watching last week or 2 weeks ago when a man picked up his mother's soil, and we put him in the soil in the back of his Subaru Forester, and then we put a bag in the front seat. And the first thing he did is put the seatbelt on it. And all of us were just like, oh my gosh, that's just the most beautiful thing I've ever freaking seen. So there are really beautiful things. I would like to explain that we deliver a lot of soil back to the family. It's a cubic yard of soil, about 400 pounds, but never fear. We have an 8-acre woodland location where we can scatter as much soil as the family needs, and we leave whatever to the family as much as they would like. So simply put, the family can take as much as they would like, and we will be sure to scatter soil in our greenbelt and our woodland location with no additional charge. People focused. I'm not here to be like, look, we're people focused. I mean, we're people focused, and you have to understand. We didn't know certain things when we started. When we started, my belief was, you don't know me. You might not care to. You're busy. You've lost your loved one. You're going to trust me with that person, and we're going to transform them into soil, and then we're going to give that soil back to you. And what we've seen is a revolution in how families interact with this process. What we're finding is that the families want to be there when their loved one is laid in. That is, they're in the vessel and they want to be there and say goodbye. We've made a process where people can put organic materials into the vessel, and it's been just absolutely incredible. Flowers, love letters, pictures, but on paper, food. A woman delivered the top layer of her wedding cake, champagne, put it in, just take out the bottle. And it allows for a goodbye on a level that is unlike anything we've seen. A couple weeks ago, it's been a hard month. We've seen young people coming to us, and it's been really tough, a lot of them. And some of the most beautiful things that we're seeing is this one mother, she came in and she had her daughter in the vessel, and her solution to the grieving of that kid's friends was to have them decorate the vessel, cover the outside of the vessel, letters, pictures, LED lights. The other thing that's really interesting about this process is we find that when someone places their loved one with us, the front of our house is completely open. By that, we mean anyone can come in, anyone can visit, and a person knows where their loved one is. They know the vessel. And so they can come back and visit. And you guys, they do. The amazing thing, we have a fridge, we fill it with soda, the kids come piling in, they empty the fridge, they sit with their friend, you know, they'll bring a bucket of chicken, and I might leave a couple pieces on top, we'll leave it there for a day. But it allows for a connection and a process through the grieving cycle that is truly remarkable. And for me personally, utterly transformative. The facility, who we are a licensed funeral home because we need to be and because it's necessary legally. We are in Auburn, Washington. It's an 11,500 square foot facility. We can teramate 74 bodies a month, so we have a lot of capacity. And we're right next to SeaTac. So we're really close to Seattle. We're really close to Tacoma. We take a lot of families from outside of Seattle. It's mind-blowing. One of the things that's been so beautiful has been often in funeral service, I think many of you know, sometimes we're a little bit siloed. I mean, PMA is an exception, but somewhat siloed by race and religion. In our case, it's been unbelievable. White, African-American, Asian, Pacific Islander, gay, straight, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, California. I know there's more, Missouri. So people are coming from all over, as young as 23, as old as 98. The other thing that's been really amazing to us is that it's not, my funeral directors say to me, you know, I've been in the business all my adult life, and never once has someone ever called me and said, I'm dying and I'm having a really, really hard time in my life. But I want you to know that my cremation, my upcoming cremation, is something that really gives me a bright point. Said, frankly, no one ever. In our case, people call us personally, or their families call us, and they say, I want you to know that this is the thing that gives me hope. This is the thing that gives me light. This is mothers who've lost their kids. This is people who have planned death with dignity. And for us, that again has been incredibly powerful and incredibly transformative. I think there's something in our bones, like a salmon going back up the river, that needs and wants to go back to the earth. And for some reason, this gives an incredible amount of comfort. Little technology, let's do it. We are completely digital in our approach because we were able to leapfrog everything that had come before us. Every vessel is QR coded. Everything runs through an online system. Every time a body is moved or touched, it is recorded and put into the cloud. Our HVAC system that moves our air is rather remarkable, and it's measuring everything all the time. Moisture level, airflow, temperature coming off of every vessel. I'm a little obsessed because the alternative is unacceptable. We have to make sure we do it well. And frankly, we do. So how are we different? Well, we're the largest in the world, but who cares? We're open and transparent. What does that mean? It means that you can come to our facility whenever you want. It means you can sit next to your loved one's vessel in the first month of the teramation process during business hours. It means you can ask us any question and we'll tell you. It means that you can decorate your vessel, your loved one's vessel. It means that you can be there and you can put things in your vessel. So it's been pretty cool that way, and we care very much. My experience as a person who didn't start in the funeral industry is if you don't tell me the whole story, if I don't know it, I'm going to make a scary story in my own head about it. And our job is to make sure there are no scary stories, that the truth is told so that we all have comfort about what's happening. One call. Obviously, this is a process the world doesn't know. One call to return home. We will take care of absolutely everything. Paperwork, transportation, teramation, communication back and forth, delivery of soil. So rest assured that even though this is new, we've got you. And finally, our 8-acre woodland that I'd mentioned is a property. It's very, very close. We think it's very important that the land be very close to our facility, and it's a 15-minute drive. So any soil that can't be taken by the family can be given to our woodland and scattered there, and there we go. Oh, one thing about transparency as well. I know this is not a TikTok crew. Many of you have heard of TikTok, I think. We run a TikTok channel that is extremely straight about the death process, about the terramation process, and what we do. Our channel's been viewed, the videos on our channel have been viewed over 30 million times in the last month or so. 3.5 million people have pressed like on what we do. And the questions we tried to answer, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and we do our best, but it's a task. Suffice it to say that this is a movement that has enormous potential, that the world wants and is going to rise powerfully. The benefits of terramation. I think the most important one is it's just so gentle. We know with cremation that at the end of the day that we are going to have to cremate a body at 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. We know that cremation produces or needs 30 gallons of fuel to power it. We also know that cremation ultimately emits about 530 pounds of CO2 per decedent. 90% of King County is cremated. So there's a real, I think, benefit in the fact that we're so gentle. Non-invasive, let's be very specific. Non-invasive means we do not alter bodies, okay? We don't cut them, we don't separate them, we don't grind them. That means that at the end of our first month, the body has been completely transformed into soil. And when we reduce bone, that's all we do. And there's no need to do anything else. Retains carbon in soil, fairly self-evident. If we're not burning, the general rule with being fairly environmentally conscious, I heard a great one. It said, don't burn stuff. And we don't. And that allows us to retain a great deal of carbon in our soil. Nourishes soil fairly linear. Conserves energy. We're estimating at this point that compared to cremation, we're running about 90% more efficient. If you come to our facility, you'll feel the air that runs through our vessels, and it's a trickle. It's about 1/5 of a hairdryer. Restores and preserves land. Guys, we've lost 50% of our organic matter over the last 50 years globally. It's time to start putting it back if we can. And finally, of course, we reduce relative carbon emissions. All right, I get it. We're composting bodies. People are like, that's really weird. Or not, but why is it so important? Washington State started it. Oregon has ratified and will kick it in the summer of this year. Colorado is next. We know that Massachusetts is currently on deck. We know that Vermont is. And so we're going to see a real sweep of legislation across the nation for this to happen. And Washington is the vanguard for this. We are the absolute bellwether. We are the first. And it's really unbelievably remarkable that we are. We're not just the first in America, we're the first on the planet. So it's incredible what Washington has done. So here's the rise of cremation and the drop in burial. You can see it's a fairly linear one. You can see it's very, very fast. And by 2040, if we continue on the same trajectory, 78% of our decedents in 2040, which frankly just ain't that far away, will be cremated. We believe that there is an environmental consequence to this cremation. We believe that that consequence is significant. I've already explained 30 gallons of fuel, 530 pounds of CO2. We're not selling toasters. We don't need to do a survey for this. All of us are going to die, and we must put forward a disposition method that makes sure we return to the earth and make our last act on this planet one that gives back. This is a graph that I want to see changed. I want to see cremation drop, and I want to see greener forms of disposition begin to rise. And I'm very heartened and believe that that's going to happen. Let's talk pricing. Our terramation process is $4,950. That's typically what we do. We're offering a 20% discount to PMA members, so it's $3,960. One of the things that's really sacred to us is there is no upsell and there is no cross-sell. And I know that's been a real thorn in our industry's side. We don't upsell and don't cross-sell because we don't have anything to upsell and cross-sell. We transform our loved ones into soil. The only charge that changes is transportation. So inside 75 miles, there is no charge for removal and bringing your loved one to us. But outside of that, there is additional charging. But other than that, what you see is what's there. One of the beautiful things about what we've seen on TikTok is we've had tens of thousands of people write us, and they say they love us. And in my old job of finance, no one ever wrote me and told me they loved me. And I'm really gratified by this. And actually, I'm sorry. It's not that they say they love us. I take it all back. They say they love what we do, but that I equate the two. And I think that there is such a passionate desire to do this. And if you ever get TikTok, just read through it. It's incredible and really beautiful. I bequeath myself to the earth to grow from the grass I love. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles, says the ever beautiful Walt Whitman. And with that, I wrap up my presentation and hit me with any questions you might have. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Micah. We do have a few questions, so I'll ask you those questions. And if anyone else out there has anything, you can submit them using that Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen once you hover your mouse over there. Or you can put it in the chat. I'll look there as well. So Micah, Dennis asks, what is the energy level of terramation compared to other options?
Sure. Well, it's a little difficult to calculate. Cremation is our primary focus, and that's because, of course, cremation is such a significant part of the market. The other option that we know of, that's the major disposition method, is burial. And that's quite difficult to measure in terms of inputs, though the outputs are a little more clear. So with burial, a lot of the time we are, not every time, but most of the time, embalming. We're placing our person in a casket. The casket is going into a hole in the ground lined with cement and rebar, and it's going into a cemetery that has been designated in perpetuity to stay that way. In other words, that land's not going to be used again. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to quantify that, like really get that straight, but we do feel that that is a methodology that is difficult to sustain over the long term. And we think that that's, I don't know, something we'd like to try to some extent replace. Now, let's be very clear. Alkaline hydrolysis and green burial, all day long. Let's go. We love it. The earth needs what it needs. Alkaline hydrolysis, environmentally, absolutely solid, runs extremely efficient numbers. Green burial, but let's be specific about what green burial means. To us, that means a hole in the ground with an unembalmed body simply wrapped in organic materials. The challenge that happens on that score is so many cemeteries are incapable of doing that. Yes, they will take a body unembalmed, and yes, it can be organically wrapped, but it typically requires a cement and rebar lined liner, and that is rather self-defeating. So I'm sorry I don't have specific data for you, but green burial, as in a body in the ground, and alkaline hydrolysis are things we think are flat out marvelous.
It's really nice that we have options to choose from.
You're right.
So we've got two different questions about the process, about what happens to the bones and teeth. So
Totally.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Why take them out? Just about that piece.
Sure. One of the challenges we have had, Returns Home had, is that there's been a lot of news out there that says bones magically disappear. Our science does not indicate that. It could be others have, but I can unequivocally say our science does not indicate that. I think it's very important people are asking about bones and teeth. Bones, kind of wild, but bones, of course, are rigid and very, very sturdy, but when fragmented inside, they're porous. We fragment to 1/8 inch shards and put them back into the soil. And in that second month, the bone shards do disappear into the soil. It's hot, It's moist, there's a lot of rotation, and the bones do go away. Teeth are also interesting. And let's talk about inorganics, by the way, right? Teeth sometimes have gold on them. There are precious metals. We're very careful to get that. And we absolutely make sure it is recycled. A secret about some parts of the industry is that they take that gold and they monetize it for their company. We think it's a waste to throw gold away. Then we do make sure that it is sold. And then we do make sure that that money is donated. It's not appropriate that money be made from it, but we think the use of it to further, the greater good is important. For inorganics, hips, stents, these kinds of things, we try to recycle to the maximum extent possible as well. And those are all removed. Once the body has been teramated and there's bone, we simply remove inorganics.
Thank you. And then another question about the soil is, what can we do with our loved one's soil once we get it back?
Sure. Yeah, this is the part that's just so darn beautiful. And again, I just want to reiterate, there is something in our bones that when we get this soil, it just feels so good. So SB 5001, which is the law of our state, simply allows for the use of soil identically to that of cremated remains. So anywhere that you could place cremated remains, you may place teramated soil. It requires permission of the landowner. So if someone owns the land, they can do it. It requires approval by the person controlling certain lands, for example, a park ranger. But other than that, it is unbelievably flexible. The things that people have done. We lost a young woman who was Hawaiian. Her family has split it into 20 little bags. People have gone through the islands, or are planning, I should say, to go through the islands to place it. We had one group that made a tree break in front of their house, and they placed their father's soil there because they wanted to make sure that he was there to hold and protect them over the long term. We've had groups, a young woman lost her wife, and they broke it into a series of bags, and they all went to an arboretum. The funniest I heard, and it hasn't happened, but I liked it. One young guy said, when I die, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take all 500 pounds of the soil. I'm going to give it to my brothers, 50 pounds at a time. And I'm going to make them all hike up a giant mountain to put it, just to pay them back for all the trouble they've given me. So long story short, we are limited by our own imagination, but it is ridiculously beautiful what can be done.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question, Doug. So yes, if you're a homeowner, you can use that soil in your own garden. And we've got a question from Rose Amber. Can you pay ahead of time for your process, pre-plan?
We do. And one of the things that's been really instructive to us is we've had people come from across the country. So we are able to pre-plan across the United States, and we're doing a great deal of it. Please go to, I will try to find the, see if I can do this even, but I'm going to slow this, throw this in. We have plan ahead very quickly. Here's my little link. I'll make sure I give it to you right now. And this allows for anyone to pre-plan. It is a price that is fixed. So that price will not change. And there you go.
Great, thank you. While we're on the topic of money, we do have a question maybe about the larger economics of natural organic reduction and aquamation. So this might be asking you to hypothesize a little bit about the future, but we know that these two new options are a little bit more expensive than cremation. So
Sure.
What do you think the likelihood of the costs of these new processes that it might come down, the cost might come down as they become more common?
I do see that we are going to be dropping price somewhat. We do note, however, that you're right, go for a very low-end cremation, but we also find that the average cremation price is on the $3,000 side a lot of the time, once folks have added in all of the additional services and products that are sold. So you're right. If we go for our simplest cremation, it is considerably cheaper, but we would also note that it is not always as simple as that. And yes, over the long term, we do see a variety of options coming in, and we do see it getting a little more price efficient.
Thank you. And shameless plug for PMA membership, because that cost for cremation gets a little bit closer to $1,000 here in Washington State.
And you guys are, you're the gold standard.
And then we've got another question from Heather. She's familiar that natural organic reduction was used with agricultural animals, and that in that process, the bones and teeth were not removed and cremulated. So I think this is just more of a statement. She's familiar that they left them alone to become soil, and that's correct. Yeah,
it is. And it's very interesting because that's actually a term we call mortality composting. I dealt a lot with those scientists. Their science is incredibly dialed and they're phenomenal. A farmer is in rural Ohio, for example, has 500 pigs, a disease sweeps his sties, and he needs to deal with tons and tons of that, of dead animal. They set up temporary facilities to transform them into the earth. Now, the key thing that they have on their side is time. And so once they've set up that facility, they'd be happy to wait for a year and do. And bones do absolutely disappear. So it genuinely works, and you're absolutely correct.
And thanks for clarifying. It's a different term when it's done with the animals.
No worries.
All right. And then we've got, it looks like maybe just one more question, unless anyone would like to plug anything else before we let Micah go. But Julie is she says, wonderful presentation. Thank you. Do you have a conservation easement on the 8-acre woodland?
It's even better than a conservation easement. We bought a piece of land that is zoned undevelopable. So we made sure that what we bought has an inability, not only for us to not build on it, it is impossible for anyone to. And the way that happened was there was a development behind it. And the developer, I believe, negotiated a greenbelt band in front of it, right next to this beautiful creek that runs through. And so we were very careful to buy something that is utterly impossible to build on.
Wonderful. Thank you. And last comment here, Pam, yes, to clarify, the PMA member cost for the process with return home is just over $3,900, just under $4,000. Yeah, that's correct.
And we've had PMA members really coming to us. So we're delighted to help you guys, and thank you all so much for your support.
Great. We're happy to have you. Thank you, Micah.
One last thing that I would add, we don't use answering services. You will hear my team answer day or night, 365 days a year. So if you call us, email us, or message us on the website, it'll be us. So we're always happy to talk, and thank you again.
Great. Thank you, Micah.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the president of our board, Cheryl Jennings. She's going to bring us to our closing.
Great. Well, wow, Micah, this was really eye-opening and interesting. Great and farewell presentation. Thank you. We're so lucky to live in a state where we have options like this for end of life. And thank you to all the PMA members and partners who really worked hard over so long to ensure that this option was legalized for us in Washington State back in 2019. So before we adjourn today's meeting, I'd like to announce the winner of today's raffle. Congratulations to Mary Ferrari. You won a PMA gift basket. We're actually able to give away 2 gift baskets thanks to the generosity of Return Home. So the second person we're congratulating is Laurel Sexton. You're our second winner. We'll be in touch with you to verify your mailing addresses. All of this brings us to the end of our annual meeting. Thank you to all 140 of you that registered to join us this morning. Please be sure that you're receiving our e-newsletter so you can stay informed of all the wonderful things happening with our organizations and with the industry at large. If you have any questions or comments for us, please visit our website or email us at info@peoplesmemorial.org. You'll see that in the chat box there at the bottom. The 2022 People's Memorial Association and the Co-op Funeral Home Annual Meeting is now adjourned. Thanks for coming.